Hi, my name is Andrew McKenna, and this is my slide presentation for Module 5 for AEP 800, the Technology Shift in Education. Basically, a summary of articles. The digital divide was really eye-opening for me. I didn't quite realize that there were still so many areas in the country that were unable to get internet access. Obviously, I work in a Title I school, and I knew there was a socioeconomic issue for people, but I think just surprising for me was that there's actually areas that don't have the availability due to, cable lines, etc., being ran to get internet and to have Wi-Fi and different things. I thought it was interesting how it talked about creating a team and setting a plan in place, how important that was, how to overcome obstacles. Talked even kind of a little bit about best strategies, that's something important to look into. Training also being an issue, time being an issue. Availability of resources online is an issue, which all got me thinking about, how important it would be to research the best technologies for elementary schools, because a lot of these articles, to me, not that they weren't geared towards elementary schools and they had some good information and successes, but I'm thinking K through 5 is such a big shift. It made me think of how to research, what the best way to go about researching what's best for elementary schools. Do I feel that the digital divide can be resolved? Yes, for the most part, I believe it can be. I think eventually, one of the articles talked about the highway basically issue and how eventually, started off with the highways and they spread, and now look at us, we get all over the place via one highway or another. So I think, yes, eventually the lines will be ran throughout the country. I think people will have that availability. And their issue won't be because of availability or ability. It's going to be maybe more of a socioeconomic issue, whether or not they have internet. So I think that schools have to have a plan in order to handle that divide. Because if they are a school where basically every student has a Chromebook, well, what about those kids that can't get on when they get home? So what's the plan for that? I think that technology, like I said, I think there will be collaboration among industry people for cable and all of that, the phone companies, and I think eventually those lines will spread all over and people will be able to have access. And I think the open resources will improve. I know they're frustrating now. I personally get frustrated, but I think that the open resources will improve for the ease of when teachers are going on to find those things. And I think eventually it will be less frustrating and time consuming. What skill sets do you feel 21st century students must acquire prior to graduation? I think first and foremost, it's going to be digital responsibility. Technology has advanced so quickly that I know that, being a teen child of the 90s, I was one of the first in my high school to have a cell phone, which my dad threatened within an inch of my life if I used because it cost so much. So, we didn't have constant access, and these kids have constant access from the time they're born, basically, to everything. But the problem with that is they're not being taught responsibility first. They're being given and then saying, oh, yeah, by the way, later on, perhaps when there's an issue, yeah, maybe you shouldn't do this or do that. So I think teaching them that digital responsibility for their own safety and for the safety of others is really important. I believe that they need to learn how to use technology for problem solving, and along with that comes exposure to different types of technology. There's so many different things now, and there's going to be so much more by the time they even graduate, that I feel like exposure is extremely important for them, especially when it comes to problem solving. What impact has the global economy had on your personal use of the internet? Huge, huge impact. I wouldn't have my degree. I wouldn't be teaching if it wasn't for the use of the internet. I was not willing to sacrifice time going to class for my children. So until I found a program several years ago in Kansas, one of the first that had all online for education. It could use some improvement at the time, but they were the only ones at the time that had it, and it was such a blessing and a great thing for me to be able to do it on my own time and not have to sacrifice every night going to class. I could do my family thing, and then I could stay up stupid late if I needed to, and sacrifice my own sanity and stuff, but at least I felt like I took less away from my family. And so currently it's fabulous because I get to do this for my master's. Teaching resources, there's so many things available online, which is amazing because I'll think of something and then I will spend some time on the computer finding it, and then boom, I have it. I honestly can't imagine teaching without it. And also personally, of course, social networking. It's crazy how you can stay in touch with anyone you want all the time, or even see sometimes those you don't. Shopping, personally, it's been huge financial savings wise. I do a lot of online couponing, and I do, we price shop all the time online. So that's been huge for our family, being especially that we're so large. What technology training do you still need to effectively integrate technology in your current position? Well, I think going into admin, I think that it is important to have information on what is effective for elementary schools, what's effective mostly for middle school and high school, what type of technology is going to work best with kindergarten versus fifth grade. I think those are things you need to look at and be informed on. If you are becoming a school that, say, does all Chromebooks, what's it like to be paperless? How do you do your assignments all online? How does it look from the student standpoint? What's it look like from the teacher standpoint? That's a whole lot of training. Open resource training, how to search online more effectively. I know sometimes I can waste an entire plan searching online for one thing, and it's so incredibly frustrating. And also, of course, cost. You've got to be trained on, what you can spend and what you should spend. And I just feel like that's comes from the financial department, and from downtown. I believe that USD 259 is really geared towards 21st century technology. Every classroom has a smart board. We have document cameras. I didn't have my smart board all last week, and it was painful. I joked that it's like teaching back in the 90s. And I hated every minute of it, and so did my kids. I have become very dependent upon it, and so have my students. We have increased the number of computers within the district. We are not at a 1-to-1 yet, but we are definitely getting there. A lot of classrooms have iPads. A lot of the middle schools and high schools, depending on the teachers, let the students use smartphones for research or for instant type of apps that you have where you can engage with the teacher, such as Kahoot and different things where they're actively participating in the lesson. What are the advantages? Well, I mean, it could cut costs on materials if you're using online resources such as Engage New York and not having to pay for materials like such as McGraw or whatever. That's definitely going to cut cost. Also on printing, toner, ink, without, if you're more of a paperless type of building. It creates engagement. I mean, kids love technology. They get excited when it's time to get on the computers and do different things. It also prepares them for 21st century jobs. Kids are not going to get a job by the time they graduate that does not involve some form of technology. It's just a reality. So the more exposure they have, the better off they are. It saves time. I mean, it really can save time. Instead of making 40, 80, 100 copies. I mean, if it's just boom, submit, and then they can get online, it can save a teacher time. It could save a student time. It could also ease differentiating. It could create engagement and enrichment for those that need it. And it could be some reteaching that you could put in place for those that may need that. Disadvantages, of course, cost. It's expensive. Teacher training. Holy moly, that's going to be the big one. Getting them comfortable where they can then train the students on it. Socioeconomic, that's always going to be an issue. So you need to have a plan in place for those students that may not have internet at home, and how are they going to be able to do their work. Tech support could be a total issue, especially if you have an entire school that's reliant all upon their laptops or their Chromebooks or whatever they have. Teacher buy-in. A lot of the older teachers are not as comfortable with technology, and so getting them to buy into it and get comfortable with it's going to be huge. And resources, technology resources, online resources, that could all be kind of a pain and frustrating for teachers, for admin, for everyone. Have you experienced problems with cyberbullying? Ooh, can't talk. Or other inappropriate internet use with students? Yes, I have. Had an issue not long ago in my class, and they were on some site. It was a cool math game doing some building blocks, and apparently you can instant message each other in your group, and one girl got her feelings hurt and felt that she was being bullied. It turned out it was conflict. But, kind of teaching them, what's okay, what's not. It's all about teaching them internet responsibility. Personally, my youngest daughter has recently experienced some major cyberbullying on Instagram, and these people were she'd block them, and they would create a new thing and message her, and to the point where we had to contact the school and contact the police. And it's a scary thing. These kids don't have any idea the dangers that come with the internet, or how once you put something out there, it's out there forever, or the liability that they have by what they say and do on it, and the consequences they could face. So I think there's a lot of teaching that has to happen. I think we're now all getting to that point where we see what can happen, and now we're having to go backwards and now teach, because kids had access before they had lessons. And so I think it starts at home, but we have to also do it at school, because it may not get done at home, teaching them internet responsibility. So I think that's huge, especially going into adulthood. They need to learn that what they put out there is forever out there. So I think that needs to be a huge part of curriculum as well, especially if you're going to integrate more technology. Thank you guys for watching, and this is my Works Cited page.